Hello and welcome to your Lettings Finance training. In this video, we're going to be looking at imported bank statement reconciliation. It's going to cover importing receipts from your bank statement into Expert Agent and also reconciling the payments that you've made through your bank against Expert Agent. So jumping across into Expert Agent, the way in which our imported statement reconciliation is going to work is that we're going to go via our top finance menu and into the account submenu and into imported statement reconciliation. What this section will allow you to do is upload a CSV copy of your bank statement into Expert Agent. From that statement, you can pull any receipts that you've had into your client account through into the system and also reconcile any payments that you've made out of the bank account to the payments that you've made in Expert Agent. Because this method of reconciliation is pulling your receipts directly from your bank statement into Expert Agent, it is worth reiterating at this point, if you're going to use this method, you do not want to be using the top finance menu and rent arrears or outstanding transactions to record that your payments have been received into the bank, because you will end up duplicating the receipts into Expert Agent. This method is going to put the amounts from your bank statement straight onto your tenant ledgers. So if you are also to record that the rent is come in via rent arrears or outstanding transactions, you will end up with duplicate rent amounts on your tenant's records and your accounts won't reconcile. So as a rule of thumb, we recommend that you either use the imported statement reconciliation and use it fully, or you don't use the imported statement reconciliation and you use rent arrears or outstanding transactions. Flicking between the two can confuse matters, so best to pick one or the other. Before we have a look at uploading a statement, I want to talk you through the statement itself. The statement that you're importing does need to be in a CSV format, and there do need to be some specific columns formatted in specific ways to enable the import to work effectively. So we're just going to open up a CSV file and have a look at that statement now. So here's an example CSV statement that could be downloaded from your bank. We've got a date column, a description column, and a debit and credit column. Now these are the four columns that you must have, so they're the minimum columns that you must have in your CSV in order for the import to work. Your date column must be formatted as these are here, with date, month, year, year. Any other format will fail. So it's important that when you're downloading your CSV, you're ensuring that you're converting the date format if necessary. The other thing to note is there is a separate debit and credit column in this CSV. That's important as well. If all your amounts are in one column, again, the upload will fail. So it's important that you've got a separate debit and credit column, your date column is in the correct format, and that you've also got a description column there. It's acceptable that you've got other columns within this report, as I have here. The information from these columns won't pull through into Expert Agent, but it's not going to affect the upload in any way. So if I close that down now, and we'll have a look at now importing the statement itself. So in our imported statement reconciliation screen, the first screen that will open by default is uploaded statements awaiting mapping. So from this screen, we can upload the statement itself. The first thing we need to do is confirm the bank account within Expert Agent that the statement is for. Click here to select the file itself. You want to ensure there's a green dot alongside the file. You're then going to upload. Once uploaded, your statement will appear below and you'll be able to click on it, and that will open up this screen that displays all the information, all the columns on your CSV that you've pulled into the system. We've brought our statement into Expert Agent. We now need to map that statement to confirm with EA which columns are which. If you've uploaded a statement before, you'll be able to use the mapping that you saved last time just by selecting it from the drop-down. If this is the first time you're importing a statement or it's a new type of statement that you're importing, you just need to tell Expert Agent which column is which. And once done, you can save that mapping to be used in future. It will then appear under your Save Mappings drop-down next time. Save when you're happy. That statement will get mapped and it will move from your uploaded statements awaiting mapping across to your mapped statements awaiting reconciliation. And this is where you're physically going to do the reconciliation from. So any active statements will sit within this section, which are statements with transactions on that haven't yet been imported into Expert Agent. Clicking on the statement will open up this screen, which looks slightly different from the last time we looked at the statement. Now the columns have been mapped. So we've got several columns here. We've got an ignore column on the far left-hand side. We've then got our account name, the reference, which is pulled through from our statement itself, the transaction date, again coming through from that statement itself, our debit and credit amounts, and then we've got some additional columns here which are amount reconciled and amount outstanding, which is confirming how much of the transaction itself has been reconciled and how much remains outstanding. At the bottom, we've got a summary, which gives us a total of debits and credits and how much has been reconciled and what's still unreconciled on this statement so far. So to begin reconciling, we're just going to work down this statement, reconciling each transaction one at a time. So if we start at the top there, clicking on the transaction, this transaction happens to be a receipt that displays at the top there. Expert Agent will use the description of your transaction to see if it can link it to any of your tenants or landlords within Expert Agent. If it can, the particular tenant will appear here under the matching records, and you'll just be able to click on them to confirm that this receipt is for that particular tenant and click the save icon. On clicking that save icon, that transaction will turn green to confirm that it's now been reconciled. If I click on my next transaction there, again, this is a tenant that I've previously recorded receipts as coming in from. Expert Agent has linked it to my tenant, so I can click on their name and save, and it will reconcile that transaction against that tenant for me. That's now turned green to confirm it's reconciled. You'll notice that my totals at the bottom are updating live based on what I've reconciled. So it's just a case of working down, pulling those receipts through into Expert Agent, and ensuring they turn green in the process. If I've got a new tenant that I haven't reconciled a receipt for before, when I click on them, there'll be no linked record, there'll be no record in blue. So all I have to do is click the plus icon alongside my selected tenant, find my tenant in question, and save. And that will reconcile that receipt for me. You'll see that one's turned green. And next month when I receive in the rent from Miss Brazier again, that reference, assuming that she uses the same reference each time on her payment to us, will then pull through as my other ones are. As I'm reconciling my receipts, or indeed any transaction from this statement, if there's anything appearing on there that perhaps I don't want to import into Expert Agent, I've got the option to ignore it on the statement. So tell Expert Agent that I'm not wanting to pull that transaction through into the system. Maybe it doesn't relate to any tenant in particular. In that scenario, I'm going to click the Ignore button alongside it. And I'll confirm that yes, I do want to mark this transaction as reconciled, and you'll see the ignore box is ghosted out on the left-hand side there. So that's reconciling your receipts. It's just clicking alongside the receipt in question. If the tenant is already mapped, they've already made a payment to you that you've mapped through the statement, the reference will be recognised, the tenant will be linked automatically, and you'll just be able to click on them to confirm. Anyone that hasn't made a payment to you so far, you'll need to map it the first time, and then for subsequent receipts, that will be remembered. For your landlord payments that you've made through Expert Agent and then subsequently through the bank, we can reconcile those using the imported statement method as well. All you'll do is click alongside the payment from the statement, and it will open up the Reconcile Payment screen for you. Expert Agent will look for any exact matches with the payment, so payments on the same date of the same amount, and it will load them on the screen for you. If there's just one matching, that one will pull through. If there are additional payments of the same amount on the same date, they'll all be listed, and you'll just need to select the correct one and click your save icon, confirm that yes, you want to reconcile, and that payment will turn green in the same way your receipts did. So you're working down the statement again, marking off the payments as reconciled. So you'll see for this landlord, I've got 2 payments of the same amount. So I'm just confirming the correct one for this landlord and saving. If Expert Agent can't find an exact match, so there isn't one payment of the exact amount in Expert Agent, it will show all payments less than the entry amount. So all the possible payments that it could be to make up that payment that you've made from the bank. Now my payment for Mr. Care, he owns a couple of properties with us, and he owns his properties at Trent Road. So what I can do is find them in the list. They just so happen to be at the top there. And as I tick one, it will confirm that I've allocated 31640, which is the payment that I've just selected, of the 75640 total, which leaves 440 unallocated still. Any payments above that amount will have disappeared from this list. So again, I can only select transactions that are less than that amount. There's the second payment there, it's 440 exactly, which is my unallocated amount, so I can tick that one there. Everything else disappears because there's now nothing unallocated, so I can save that one. I'll confirm that yes, I want to reconcile those 2 entries in Expert Agent against my 1 payment from the bank, and that will again turn green. So I've got 1 transaction left to reconcile on my statement, which is my agency payment there. So I'm going to click that one. There will be no exact match for your agency payments usually, because your agency payments in Expert Agent will be on an invoice by invoice basis, whereas you've probably made 1 transfer out of the bank account. So we're now looking to reconcile the individual invoices within Expert Agent against the payment that we've made from the bank. To help us with that, we're going to use the filter options, the sort options alongside my details column. And I can scroll down my list and all my agency payments will be together. So I can just tick through them. As I tick through them, you'll see my amounts change here. Just confirming that each of these amounts are in fact included in the payment that I've made. Okay, when I've got to the bottom of that agency payment list, hopefully everything's matched up and I've got 0 unallocated, and I can save that there. Just confirming that I want to match the 34 separate invoices that I included in my 399,877 payment, so I can click yes there. And that transaction will reconcile. Everything at the bottom is now reconciled, and I can close out of this screen. Now confirming that 12 of 12 have been reconciled, and I can click to complete the statement and confirm yes. And that will move that statement from my map statements across into my list of reconciled statements, where it sits as a record for me. What I'll find now is if I look at my bank reconciliation report, all the transactions that I've imported will show on there. They'll show yes in the reconciled column, and I'll be able to see that they've come in via bank transfer because they'll be displaying as such on the report with their payment reference showing alongside them. Okay, and in terms of the payments that I've reconciled, again, they'll be showing as yes in my reconcile column. And here's all my agency payments here. So I've used that imported statement rec to bring my transactions through into Expert Agent in terms of my receipts. And I've also used it to reconcile payments that I've made out from the bank against their corresponding payments in Expert Agent. There's one final step that we'll need to look at in terms of our receipts, and that is allocating the receipts that we've recorded against the charges they relate to. And the way we're going to do that is via our top finance menu and unallocated funds tenancies. So clicking on unallocated funds tenancies, we bring up a list for us of every tenant that has a receipt recorded as coming in that hasn't yet been used to mark any charges as paid. So for us, in practice, using our imported statement rec, these are going to be the receipts that we pulled through onto our tenants' records that need now to be allocated against their relevant charges. So we're just going to work down the list one at a time, clicking alongside the tenant, selecting our tenant in particular. That will open up the receiver payment screen, the screen that we can use to allocate. And all we're going to want to do is tick alongside the charge that our receipt that we've had in relates to and click the save icon. Next one on the list. So the amount that we've got in, the amount we've had in will show in the unallocated amount at the bottom. So we'll just be able to tick the select box alongside the relevant charge and save, and that will allocate. If our tenant has got more than one outstanding charge, each outstanding charge will show in the list. You'll just want to tick against the one or the multiples that you want to allocate against, and that will mark it as paid accordingly. Okay, if I close out of that screen now and go back in, that list will now be empty for me. I've allocated all the receipts that we've recorded in via our imported statement, and the relevant landlords will now be set for payment. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video.